Good evening. Hello and welcome back to Clarity by Aspirants. So, in the last lecture, we talked about how the Congress system was restored and was compromised, and the Congress was split into two basic parties, that is Congress R and Congress O. So, but it was not the same kind of party. We have to keep in mind that also that Congress was restored, absolutely true, but it was not the party which was earlier before the split. The difference clearly gave a crisis to the Congress in the politics, and we will see these crises in the next coming chapter, which is the crisis of democratic order. So, the word breakdown here tells us that the crisis of democratic order. What does we know about democracy? We know about democracy in the last class of yours, in the 11th class book of yours, the Constitution of India. You have read that democracy is basically means to the people, for the people, and by the people. But what is to the people? What is by the people? And what is it that is for the people? That is their rights, their obligations, the duties which basically state performs for the citizens of the country, the nation. That is what's known as democracy. Let me simply define democracy, a democratic order wherein people are given the rights, the freedom to express themselves, to live the life accordingly as per the law of the land. That is the supreme law of the land, which is Constitution of India. So अब हम देखेंगे इसके अंदर कि बैकग्राउंड ऑफ इमरजेंसी क्या है दैट व्हाट इज द बैकग्राउंड ऑफ इमरजेंसी व्हाट इज इमरजेंसी सी फर्स्ट वी हैव टू नो दैट व्हाट इज इमरजेंसी many teachers start their chapter by defining basically that how was emergency imposed but they never tell that what is emergency what thing constitutes about emergency that why is it is called emergency so basically they in our constitution, there are three types of emergencies which are defined under Article 352, 356, and 360, which are basically known as national emergency, president's rule, which is also known as state emergency, and financial emergency. So emergencies are of two types, three types. The financial emergency, which is under Article 360, has been never imposed in our nation. So we will basically talk about these two emergencies. One is of the state and one is of the nation. So the state emergency is also known as president's rule, meaning the emergency, all of them are imposed by the president of India by his signed by his authority on the aid and advice of the council of ministers, basically the prime minister. Okay? Now, the 356 article, which talks about the state emergency or the president's rule, is imposed on a particular state. Meaning, suppose there are many states in India, and suppose the emergency is imposed on Goa. So basically, there are some rights which are available to us, which are basically in the normal circumstances available to us. But under the Article 356, if an emergency is imposed in a state, some of our rights will get curtailed, meaning we will not have the free all over freedom of movement, speech and expression, and any other of kind. And under Article 352, the national emergency is imposed. There can be various grounds of national emergency as well, like war, external aggression, and armed rebellion. There are the three grounds that are mentioned in the Constitution: war, external aggression, and armed rebellion. The previous word, which was replaced by the armed rebellion, was internal differences. It was replaced by the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act. So now we know in the coming chapter we will know that why was the term internal disturbances was removed. Why was the term internal disturbances were removed from the constitution and it was replaced by the armed rebellion? We will know in this chapter only that how the emergency, how its provisions, how it impacted the India and it's hindered its growth as well. So we will know first the background of emergency, that what were the things that happened to constitute and led to the declaration of emergency at that time. So we have already studied that the changes were taking place in the Indian politics since 1967. Indira Gandhi had emerged as a towering leader with tremendous popularity. We have seen that after the split from the Congress organization, that is Congress O, Indira Gandhi came up with a huge majority. But at the same time, she had also witnessed a war in 19 India has also witnessed a war in 1965. So, and in this period also, in the 1967 something, in this period we have also witnessed Green Revolution. But it was not like that Green Revolution was fully successful. In only that particular period, in between 1965 to 1974, India was going through a lot of things. Our foreign exchange reserves were depleting. Our, we are having agriculture crisis. We were having less production. Our GDP was continuously falling. Our unemployment rates were all-time high. The Supreme Court, in this period also, witnessed tension in relationship between government and the judiciary. इस टाइम पे हमारे जुडिशियल गवर्नमेंट में बहुत ज्यादा टेंशन थे क्योंकि what was the system followed at back then, that how was the Supreme Court judges were appointed, it was a particular system in which the Supreme Court judges were appointed on the basis of the seniority. That any judge which is senior in the experience will be appointed as a Supreme Court judge. But now that concept was changed by the Indira Gandhi as she bypassed two or three senior judges and appointed one of his own favorite judge as the Supreme Chief Justice of India. So there was also a tussle between the ruling party and the judiciary. The Party took position that is stand of the court was against the principles of democracy and parliamentary supremacy. The Congress also alleged that the court was a conservative institution and it was becoming an obstacle in the way of implementing pro-poor welfare programs. So basically, this was a blame game happening that the ruling party was blaming the judiciary that they are the ones which are between the pro-poor policies, that they are the ones which are uh, not making it happen to implement the pro-poor policies. The split in the Congress had sharpened the divisions between Indira Gandhi and her opponents, obviously. So we will now see the economic context under one of the circumstances which led to the imposition of emergency. So in the election of 1971, Congress had given the slogan of Garibi Hatao. We have read that. However, social and economic condition in the country did not improve much after 1971 and 72. The Bangladesh crisis had put a heavy strain on India's economy. What was the Bangladesh crisis? We have studied already as well that India helped in Bangladesh achieving its freedom through sending its own troops. So obviously we know that anytime or anywhere, whenever there is a war happen in a country, both the parties suffer, and it almost takes one nation at least 10 years back because we have to divert all the resources which are available in the nation to the war prone areas. So, in this context, about 8 million people crossed the East Pakistan border into India. Almost 8 million, 80 lakh people came into India after crossing the border. They were also, what were they? They were refugees. This was followed by a war with Pakistan. After the US government stopped all aid to India, and in this context, when the war was happening, US government stopped all of our aid to all of our aid, whether it was food, whether it was oil, whether it was essential supplies, because it favored Pakistan. In the international market, oil prices increased manifold during this period. This led to all-round increase. And you must know one thing that oil is the reason everything gets cheaper, everything gets expensive. Because if the oil is cheap, the transportation will be cheap. If the transportation is cheap, the raw material will be procured within the less prices. If the raw material is procured within less price, it will be made available in the wholesale market at the less price. And if it is available in the less price in the wholesale market, at the last consumers will get it in the less price. बट अगर ऑयल के ही प्राइस शूट कर जाएंगे तो आपके ट्रांसपोर्टेशन कॉस्ट बढ़ेगी, रॉ मटेरियल्स इनकी कॉस्ट बढ़ेगी, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग कॉस्ट बढ़ेगी और कंज्यूमर्स को भी चीज महंगी मिलेगी. तो एवरीथिंग इज लिंक्ड विद द ऑयल नाउडेज. So next we will study that prices increased by 23% in 1973 and 30% in 1974, which means what? If a thing was available in 100 rupees in 1972, it was available for 123 in 1973 and almost 30% of that as well. What is 30% of that as well? Almost 40 rupees. तो then 40 increase करेंगे आप इसके अंदर तो 123 plus 40 approximately 163. 2 साल में 100 रुपए की चीज 163 की हो गई थी. इतनी ज्यादा एक्सपेंसिव बढ़ गई थी, इतना ज्यादा इन्फ्लेशन हो गया था. So that was the period between which emergency was imposed. Industrial growth was also low and unemployment was very high, particularly in the rural areas. In order to reduce expenditure, the government froze salaries of employees. तो expenditure को कम करने के लिए गवर्नमेंट ने क्या करा? Employees की सैलरी ही रोक ली. This caused further dissatisfaction among government employees. Monsoons also failed in 1972 and 3. Our country is hugely dependent on the monsoon rain. There are no water facility available without the monsoon in majority of India. Hardly 10 to 30% of India's population depends on the water that is extracted from the ground or made available from the river and canals. 60 to 70% of Indian agriculture is dependent on monsoon and monsoon only. This resulted in the sharp decline in agricultural productivity. Food grain output declined by 8%. There was a general atmosphere of dissatisfaction with the prevailing economic situation all over the country. अब obvious सी बात है अगर आपके nation में if there is a huge unemployment, youth will be dissatisfied. If there is a huge inflation, the prices of the commodities is higher, then almost every household is dissatisfied with you. If there is a international crisis, the US is not exporting to us anything at all. Then we are also depleted by the foreign exchange reserve. You are not giving salaries to the employees. That employees are also dissatisfied with you. So in these circumstances, the concept of emergency will be studied. Instances of students' unrest that has persisted from the late 1916 became more pronounced. These groups had taken arms and insurgent techniques for the overthrow of capitalist order and established political system known as the Marxist-Leninist or now Maoist groups of Naxalites. So at this period, the Naxalites, which we talk about nowadays, which are prevalent in the Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, and Odisha region, the Naxalites, which were what the pro-follower of the Marxist system, that a social order should be established in the nation, that were against the capitalist form of democracy. They were the people that are now known as Marxist Naxalites. So everything has a trigger of its own. हर चीज का एक ट्रिगर होता है. And what was the trigger that led to the imposition of emergency in India was the Gujarat and the Bihar movements, particularly. These two movements were the specific to decide that now it is the emergency is going to be opposed in the nation and there is no coming back from the emergency. So students in Gujarat and Bihar, both of which were Congress ruled states, mind that in yourself that these states both were ruled by the Congress at that time only, and there the protests were happening had far-reaching impact on the politics of the two states of the national politics. In January 1974, students in Gujarat started an agitation against the rising prices of food grains, cooking oil, and other essential commodities. Obviously, as the price was almost 50% higher than the previous one, there is going to be agitation. So there is nothing wrong in it. The student protest was joined by major opposition parties and became widespread, leading to the imposition of president rule in the state. So इसलिए यहाँ पे एक ज्यादा बढ़ गया तो यहाँ पे president rule impose कर दिया गया. Under which article I have taught you about? 356. The opposition parties demanded fresh elections to the state legislature. Morarji Desai, a prominent leader of the Congress O, who was the main rival of Indira Gandhi when he was in the Congress, announced that he would go an indefinite fast if fresh elections were not held in the state. So, under intense pressure from the students, supported by the opposition political parties, assembly elections were held in Gujarat in June 1975, and the Congress was defeated. So, जैसे ही प्रेसिडेंट रूल लगा नए फ्रेश इलेक्शन हुए मोरारजी देसाई was the campaigner most popular campaigner at that time and the party of the Morarji Desai also won. In March 1974, students came together in Bihar as well to protest against the rising prices, food security, unemployment, the same thing. After a point, they invited Jay Prakash Narayana, the person who is majorly responsible for the imposition of emergency was this, the Jay Prakash Narayana, who had given up active politics and was involved in social work, but the students requested him to join the movement and to lead the movement as well. So he accepted it on the condition that the movement will remain non-violent and will not limit itself to Bihar, meaning we are going to spread outside the Bihar as well. We will go to Delhi as well. Thus, the students' movement assumed a political character. Why? It was a student movement until Jayaprakash Narayana joined it. He was a political leader. He was a social worker. But he accepted it only one condition that it will remain non-violent, that we will not use violent means. The term here non-violence is majorly mentioned because only on this ground that the movement was going to be violent, Indira Gandhi imposed emergency, but this was not at all the case. People from all walks of life now entered the movement. Jayaprakash Narayana demanded the dismissal of the Congress government in Bihar and gave a call for total revolution in the social, economic, and political spheres in order to establish what he considered to true democracy. A series of Bandh, Gherav, strikes were organized in the protest against the Bihar government. The government, however, refused to resign. The government ने resign नहीं किया. The movement was beginning to influence national politics. Jayaprakash Narayana wanted to spread the Bihar movement to other parts. So, alongside the agitation led by Jayaprakash Narayana, employees of the railways gave a call for a nationwide strike. And mind that was the largest strike in the history of the Indian Railways. This threatened to paralyze the country. In 1975, Jayaprakash Narayana led a people's march to parliament. This was one of the largest political rallies ever held in the capital. He was now supported by the non-Congress opposition parties like Bharatiya Janata Sangh, which is now Bharatiya Janata Party, the Congress or the Bharatiya Lok Dal, Socialist Party, and others. So every major opponent political party after the Congress was against the Indira Gandhi. So now we will see about the रेलवे स्ट्राइक है सर थोड़ा सा हम रेलवे स्ट्राइक के बारे में पढ़ते हैं तो आप सोच के देखिए रेलवे जो इंडिया की इतनी बड़ी प्रॉपर्टी है अगर वो चलना ही बंद कर दे तो फिर क्या होगा अगर रेलवे आपके नेशन की रेलवे इज नोन टू बी एज द बैकबोन ऑफ द इंडिया रेलवे बैकबोन मानी जाती है क्योंकि अगर रेलवे बंद हो जाती है तो सब कुछ आपकी सप्लाई बंद हो जाएगी द ऑयल द फूड द पैसेंजर्स एवरीथिंग गेट्स ट्रांसपोर्टेड इन इंडिया फ्रॉम द रेलवेज ओनली सो ये एक्चुअली हुआ भी था 1974 के अंदर so the Coordination Committee for Railwaymen Struggle led by George Fernandez gave a call for nationwide strike because उनको बोनस और सर्विस कंडीशंस के अंदर इंप्रूवमेंट चाहिए था सो लार्जेस्ट पब्लिक सेक्टर स्ट्राइक रेलवे आपका लार्जेस्ट पब्लिक सेक्टर इंडिया का ये 1974 में इन्होंने स्ट्राइक करी और सारे के सारे वर्कर्स स्ट्राइक के ऊपर गए और तब तक वापस नहीं आने का उन्होंने प्रॉमिस किया जब तक उनकी डिमांड फुलफिल नहीं होती है तो गवर्नमेंट ने क्या करा स्ट्राइक को इलीगल डिक्लेयर कर दिया और गवर्नमेंट ने किसी भी स्ट्राइक वर्कर्स की डिमांड नहीं मानी और बहुत सारे लोगों को अरेस्ट भी किया लीडर्स को भी किया एंड डिप्लॉय भी करी आर्मी द स्ट्राइक हैड टू बी कॉल्ड ऑफ आफ्टर 20 डेज विदाउट एनी सेटलमेंट और ये स्ट्राइक 20 डेज तक चली थी मतलब 20 डेज तक आपका रेलवे का पूरा हैम्पर रहा था द नेक्स्ट कॉन्फ्लिक्ट वाज विद द जुडिशरी so in this period the government and the ruling party had many differences with the judiciary so we have studied in the last year that three constitutional issues had emerged. Can the parliament abridge fundamental rights? The Supreme Court said it cannot. ये हमने लास्ट क्लास में पढ़े हैं 11th क्लास के अंदर इसके भी लेक्चर्स आपके पोर्टल के ऊपर जल्दी अपलोड होना स्टार्ट हो जाएंगे चैनल के ऊपर और मेक श्योर टू लाइक शेयर एंड सब्सक्राइब द चैनल एज वेल क्योंकि वही हमें मोटिवेट करता है आगे लेक्चर्स रिकॉर्ड करने के लिए आगे आपको और ज्यादा एक्साइटमेंट के साथ और ज्यादा नए बेस के साथ पढ़ाने के लिए सेकेंडली can the parliament curtail the right to property by making an amendment? And again, the courts and parliament cannot amend constitution in such a manner that the rights are curtailed. So, what are these issues showing? That there is a issue going on, tussle going on between the parliament and the judiciary. That what's right? कि कौन क्या कर सकता है क्या नहीं कर सकता है अगर पार्लियामेंट एक स्टेप लेती है तो जुडिशरी उसको एक स्टेप पीछे लेती है if parliament says that we can curtail the fundamental rights judiciary say you cannot curtail the fundamental rights thirdly the parliament amended the constitution, saying that it can abridge fundamental rights or give effect to DPSPs. But Supreme Court rejected this provision also. This led to the crisis as far as the relation between the government and the judiciary were concerned. Then next, two major developments further added to the tension between the judiciary and the executive, which was immediately after the Supreme Court's decision in the 1973 Keshav and Bharti case. A vacancy arose. Vacancy arose of what CGI of India, meaning the Chief Justice of India. It had been a practice to appoint a senior most judge of the Supreme Court as the Chief Justice, but in 1973, the government set aside the seniority of three judges and appointed Justice A. N. Roy as the Chief Justice of India. मीनिंग तीन जजेस को बाईपास करके द गवर्नमेंट अपॉइंटेड जस्टिस ए एन रॉय एज द सीजेआई ऑफ इंडिया द अपॉइंटमेंट बिकेम पॉलिटिकली controversial because all the three judges who were superseded had given ruling against the stand of the government once in a while मीनिंग उन्होंने कभी ना कभी अपने लाइफ टाइम में अपने पीरियड के अंदर एक ना एक बार इंदिरा गांधी गवर्नमेंट के अगेंस्ट रूलिंग दी थी thus constitutional interpretation and political ideologies were getting mixed up rapidly और जबकि हमने ये पढ़ा है कि सेपरेशन ऑफ पावर इज वन ऑफ द बेसिक फीचर ऑफ आवर कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन एंड हियर व्हाट इज हैपनिंग दैट पॉलिटिक्स इज गेटिंग मिक्स्ड इनटू द judiciary. So here a popular term got spread, which was known as committed bureaucracy. Meaning what? If you read the word together, committed bureaucracy, you think that bureaucracy is committed towards its what? Towards, I think, people in public's interest, its integrity, public service. No, committed bureaucracy basically means it is committed to government in power. The party which is in power is committed to that, meaning they will do what the politicians say, not what is good for the people. So now we will study the date of declaration of emergency. On June 12th, 1975, Justice Jagmohan Lal Sinha of Allahabad High Court passed a judgment declaring Indira Gandhi's election of Lok Sabha invalid. क्या हुआ था जब इलेक्शन हो गया था लोकसभा का तो देयर वाज अ केस फाइल्ड अगेंस्ट इंदिरा गांधी दैट माल प्रैक्टिस हैज बीन हैपेंड देयर इज सम कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट moral code of conduct MCC which the politicians has to follow during the election campaign and the election commission of India decides the date that from which date the MCC is going to be implemented. So there are certain rules like the political leaders cannot bring a new bill into the house. They cannot use government vehicles and many more. So there was a case happening in the Allahabad High Court which alleged that the Indira Gandhi has used its government position, government vehicles and government services to favor the polls into her side. So in at that period of time, there was a judgment by the Allahabad High Court which came that declared the Indira Gandhi's election invalid. This order came on an election petition filed by Raj Narayan, a socialist leader and candidate who had contested against her. The petition challenged Indira Gandhi on the ground that she had used services of government servants in her election campaign. The judgment of the High Court meant that legally she was no more an MP and therefore could not remain the Prime Minister unless she was again elected as an MP within next 6 months. So there is a rule in our constitution that a member cannot be a minister until unless he is a member of the Legislative Assembly or the Rajya Sabha, or if he ceases to be the member of the both the houses, he should be elected as a member within 6 months of any house to continue as a executive or as a minister. So on June 24th, the Supreme Court of India granted her a partial stay on the court order till her appeal was decided. She could remain an MP but could not take part in the proceeding of the Lok Sabha. तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने उसके ऊपर स्टे लगा दिया बट ये भी कहा कि जब तक कोई आपकी अपील नहीं होती है उसके ऊपर कोई रूलिंग नहीं आती तब तक आप लोकसभा की प्रोसीडिंग्स में पार्ट नहीं ले सकते हैं. तो अब इस वजह से क्या हुआ इंदिरा गांधी को डर था कि मेरा इलेक्शन अगर इनवैलिड हो गया है तो वापस इलेक्शन होगा मुझे वापस से जीतना पड़ेगा और मेरी प्राइम मिनिस्टरशिप भी जा सकती है. So this was the crisis and how did she responded? We will see now. So the stage was now set for political confrontation. Everything from all the corners is against Indira Gandhi now, whether it's judiciary, whether it's people, whether it's the court ruling, everything is against Indira Gandhi now. The opposition political parties led by Jayaprakash Narayana pressed for Indira Gandhi's resignation and organized a massive demonstration in Delhi's Ram Lila ground on 25th June 1975. Jayaprakash announced a nationwide satyagraha for resignation and asked the army, the police, and the government employees to not obey illegal and moral orders. So he was doing what? He was persuading every person in the country, whether it's army, police, or people, to not follow illegal and immoral orders. But he was not saying that these orders will be coming from Indira Gandhi and that orders you should not follow. He was saying that you should not follow illegal, immoral orders only. This too threatened to bring the activities of the government to standstill. A political mood of the country had turned against the Congress more than ever before. So the response of the government was to declare a state of emergency on June 25, 1975. The government declared that there was a threat of internal disturbances and therefore it invoked Article 352 of the Constitution. So on June 25th of 1975, the emergency was invoked under the criteria of internal disturbances. See now the term internal disturbance is very vague. Internal disturbance can occur in a part of India. Let's suppose in Delhi, particularly suppose in Rajendra Nagar there is a crisis happening that two students are fighting. and the state is saying that there is an internal disturbance between the two peoples, or we are invoking national emergency in all the nation. And internal disturbance can be this, that there is a huge mass, thousands of lakhs of people are fighting. So this is a very vague statement that internal disturbances. What do you mean by internal disturbances? How do you define internal disturbances? This was not at all defined in the constitution. So it was easy to invoke the national emergency on this ground, and so did they. So under this provision of this article, the government could declare a state of emergency on the ground of external threat or a threat of internal disturbances. The government decided that a grave crisis had risen, which made the proclamation of state of emergency necessary. Technically speaking, this was within the power of government. Obviously, technically, the government was in power to declare the state emergency. That they believe that there is going to be internal disturbances, there is going to be internal crisis. So we are invoking Article 352. Okay, you can do that. For our constitution provides some special power to the government once an emergency is declared. Now we will read about what were the special powers. Once an emergency is proclaimed, the federal distribution of power remains practically suspended, meaning the states cannot act independently now. They have to take permission for majority of their things from the central government, and all the power of are concentrated in the hands of the union government. Secondly, the government also gets the power to curtail or restrict all or any of the fundamental right during emergency. Mind that this is not now the case. There is Article 21, which cannot be suspended in any circumstance. There is Article 19, which cannot be suspended under a national emergency. You will read about that later. But it was not at that time. All the fundamental rights can be suspended during that time, particularly Article 21, which is right to life. So अगर आपकी इमरजेंसी लग जाती है, आपके फेडरल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन खत्म हो जाएगा, सारी की सारी फाइनेंशियल पावर, सारी की सारी लॉ मेकिंग पावर सेंटर के पास जाएगी। नेक्स्ट, फंडामेंटल राइट्स किसी के पास अवेलेबल नहीं रहेंगे। आप फ्रीली कहीं मूव नहीं कर सकते हैं, आप फ्रीली कुछ बोल नहीं सकते हैं, आप फ्रीली अपनी लाइफ तक नहीं जी सकते हैं। From the wording of the provision of the Constitution, it is clear that emergency is seen as an exceptional and extraordinary condition in which normal democratic politics cannot function. Therefore, special powers are granted to the government. So, on the night of the 25th June, the Prime Minister recommended imposition of emergency to President Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed. He issued proclamation immediately. After midnight, the electricity to all the major newspaper offices were disconnected. In the early morning, a large number of leaders and workers of the opposition parties were arrested. The cabinet was informed about it at a special meeting at 6 a.m. on 26 June. After all this had taken place, meaning cabinet, which is the closest ministers of the prime minister, even they were not informed about the emergency has been implemented. After the newspapers, press, electricity has been cut down, after all the political major leaders has been arrested, only then and thereafter the people of their own party, their own cabinet were informed that I have imposed emergency. Now we will see what are the consequences of the emergency. So this brought the agitation to an abrupt stop, meaning strikes were banned. Strike ban हो गए थे, अगर कुछ strike करता हुआ दिखा तो उसको arrest कर लिया जाएगा. Many opposition leaders were put in the jail. The political situation became very quiet, though intense. Deciding to use its special power under emergency provisions, the government suspended the freedom of press as well. Newspapers were asked to get prior approval of all the material to be published. This is known as press censorship. So, if you get asked in a two-marker question that what is press censorship, this basically means what? That newspaper have to ask the government before printing anything, and if the government did not approve, they cannot print anything. Apprehending social and communal disharmony, the government banned Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh, Jamaat-e-Islami, and other organizations as well. Protests and strikes and public agitations were also disallowed. Most importantly, under the provisions of emergency, various fundamental rights of the citizens stood suspended, including right of citizens to move to the court for restoring their fundamental rights. Meaning, Article 32 was also suspended. That under Article 32, any fundamental right of the citizens that are violated, any citizen of the nation can move directly to the Supreme Court for the restoration of their rights. Even that fundamental right was also curtailed. So people, even their rights are getting violated, cannot even complain to the judiciary that government is suspending our rights. So government made extensive use of preventive detention. So here you need to know the term what is preventive detention. There are two type of detentions. One is punitive detention and one is preventive detention. Under the punitive detention, the detention or arrest is made after the crime has taken place. Meaning, you commit a crime and then police came and arrest you. This is known as punitive detention. But what is preventive? Look at the word prevent. हम कोई चीज prevent होने से रोकते हैं. Meaning, if I want to prevent myself from getting failed in the exam, I need to study first. Then and only I can get prevent from getting failed. So, preventive detention, the police can arrest before committing any crime any person, and they even need not to state the reason for their arrest as well. अब reason क्या दोगे? Reason तो तब दोगे जब कोई crime आप करोगे. They can say that we are expecting that you can commit any crime in coming next month, so we are going to arrest you for 1 month or two. In the constitution, there is a limit of 3 months of the preventive detention, but this can be extended under special circumstances as well. So, गवर्नमेंट ने बहुत यूज किया प्रिवेंटिव डिटेंशन का. Using Preventive Detention Act, the government made large-scale arrests during emergency. Arrested political workers could not challenge their arrest through habeas corpus. A habeas corpus is type of writ. There are five types of writ. Example: habeas corpus, prohibition, certiorari, quo warranto, etc., which are available to the citizens of India for various problems. Under the habeas corpus, the court can ask the government or the executive to bring any person in front of them. If suppose you second, suppose this is you and this is your brother, and you are going for a walk, and police came and arrested this him. You are going to police station. You went to police station. You told them that why did you arrested my brother? What has he done? Why don't you release him? And police is not giving you any answer. They are not even telling you where is your brother. They are telling you that he is not in the police station, and we don't know where is your brother. We don't know anything about him. So you go to Supreme Court directly under the writ of habeas corpus, and court will ask the police only that bring the person to us immediately if you have them. And police have to present the person, accused person, before the court in the minimum time possible. So many cases were filed in the High Courts as well and the Supreme Court by and on behalf of the arrested person. But the government claimed that it was not even necessary to inform the arrested person of the reason and ground of the arrest. क्योंकि प्रिवेंटिव डिटेंशन में ये था कि आपको बताना जरूरी नहीं है कि आपको कौन से ग्राउंड के ऊपर अरेस्ट किया जा रहा है और क्यों किया जा रहा है. Several high courts gave judgments that even after declaration of emergency, courts could entertain writs of habeas corpus filed by a person challenging his or her detention. In April 1976, the Constitutional Bench of the Supreme Court overruled the High Court and accepted government's plea. It meant that during emergency, government could take away citizens' right to life and liberty as well. This judgment closed the doors of judiciary for the citizens and is regarded as one of the most controversial judgments of the Supreme Court, as obviously as it is. There were many acts of dissent and resistance to emergency. Many political workers who were not arrested in the first wave went underground, meaning political workers went underground and organized protests against the government. Newspapers like the Indian Express and the Statesman protested against censorship by leaving blank spaces where news item had been censored, meaning the Indian Express did not printed anything and left the space blank where the government has told them to censor the things. Magazines like the Seminar and the Mainstream choose to close down rather than to submit censorship. Many magazines choose to close down, but did not bow down against the government, against their tyranny. Many journalists were arrested who were writing against the emergency. Many underground newsletters and leaflets were published to bypass the censorship. Kannada writer Shivarama Karnad, awarded with the Padma Bhushan, and Hindi writer Fanish Varnath Renu, awarded the Padma Shri, returned their awards to protest against the suppression of democracy. So these are basically the things which were happening of how the people protested against the emergency. And there is also and very true that there is going to be things which happened that supported the very idea of the emergency as well. There are going to be the cases of this as well. So the parliament also brought in many new changes to the constitution. So in that period only, the parliament also bring down the changes into the various things of the constitution of India. For example, in the background of the ruling of the Allahabad High Court in Indira Gandhi case, गवर्नमेंट ने एक अमेंडमेंट ही बना दिया जिसके अंडर द इलेक्शन ऑफ द प्राइम मिनिस्टर president and vice president could not be challenged in the court, meaning they are absolutely immune from the judiciary. कि उनका इलेक्शन कैसे भी हो भले वो गलत हुआ हो भले ही किसी wrongful means से हुआ हो this cannot be challenged into any court. The 42nd amendment which was known also known as a mini constitution also part during this emergency. Among the various changes made by this amendment, one was that the duration of the legislation in the country was extended from 5 to 6 years. मीनिंग 5 इयर्स के बजाय अब है ना आपकी 6 इयर्स तक लेजिस्लेचर का टाइम पीरियड रहेगा विच वॉज अर्लियर 5 ईयर इट वॉज नॉट कन्वर्टेड टू 6 इयर्स. This change was not only for the emergency period, but was intended to be a permanent nature. And mind that this was not brought for the emergency period. It was brought for coming elections as well. Besides this, during the emergency, elections can be postponed by 1 year. Thus, effectively after 1971, election needed to be held only in 1978. See this, almost 7 years of gap instead of 1976. So, what were the lessons that we learned from the emergency? Obviously, there are mostly the bad lessons only, but there were some also good lessons which we learned from the emergency. First of all, that there can be no right which is available to citizens during the emergency. All the fundamental rights can get suspended, even our right to move to the judiciary to restore our fundamental rights. So, see, the first lesson of emergency is that it is extremely difficult to do away with democracy in India. See, if emergency is implemented in any nation, suppose Pakistan, there has been many instances where emergency has been implemented in Pakistan, and there has been a drastic change in the democratic order of the nation as well. Sometimes it's acting as democracy. I'm saying acting as democracy because it only acts as a democracy. It is not a democracy at all. And sometimes it looks tyranny. Secondly, it brought out some ambiguities regarding the emergency provisions in the constitution that have been rectified since. Meaning, there was some ambiguity, but this has been rectified by the subsequent following governments after the Indira Gandhi government. So now internal emergency can be proclaimed only on the ground of armed rebellion, meaning you cannot say that there are internal disturbances now and we are aiming to impose the national emergency. You can only impose emergency on internal grounds only and only if there is a chance of armed rebellion, meaning people are going to use arms, guns into the rebellion. And it is necessary that the advice of the president to proclaim emergency must be given in writing by the Union Cabinet. Mind here the word Union Cabinet. It is not now that the Prime Minister can call someone at the midnight hour and tell the president that proclaim emergency, please, and he do so. President has to get in writing by the Union Cabinet, not the Prime Minister as well, that we are going to need you to implement the emergency. Thirdly, the emergency made everyone more aware about the value of civil liberties because they were curtailed hugely and massively. The courts to have taken active role after the emergency in protecting the civil liberties of the individuals. This is a response of the inability of the judiciary to protect civil liberties effectively during the emergency. However, critical years of emergency brought many issues that have been not adequately grappled with. What is the correct balance between the two? Should the citizens have full freedom to engage in protest activity, or should there be no right at all? There are various ambiguities that regarding what should be the freedom available to the citizens, what rights to be curtailed, does the press censorship is necessary during the emergency, or there should be a freedom of speech and expression to the press as well. So there are various ambiguities around the emergency. So now we will see what was the politics after emergency. That after the emergency has been proclaimed, after the various amendments has been brought into the nation, after the various points, there was a 10-point program also launched by the Indira Gandhi government, under which they are going to reduce the burden of expenditure on the government. They're going to reduce the poverty of the nation. There was mass, large scale restoration of the land holding, ceiling. The privy purse was abolished, and many things, good things happened as well during the emergency period. And this was the only reason for given by the Indira Gandhi that even that if we had not imposed the emergency, the needed changes we cannot brought the changes into the normal and daily life functioning, daily routine functioning of the government of India. That if the emergency had not been proclaimed, we were not being able to implement those changes which were necessary to came to wipe up India from the necessary poverty, that the poverty that was widespreading, the unemployment that was rising, that food crisis, the unemployment, etc., which was crippling the nation, which was crippling our whole economy. It was necessary to bring those changes, and that can and only happen because of emergency. So we will now study politics after emergency. The 1977 election turned into a referendum of the experience of the emergency, at least in North India, where the impact of emergency was felt strongly. The opposition fought the election on the slogan of Save Democracy. The people were decisively against the emergency. ऑब्वियसली लोकसभा इलेक्शन जो होंगे आपके 1977 में वो कांग्रेस के अगेंस्ट ही हुए क्योंकि बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें थी जो लोगों को पसंद नहीं आई थी उस टाइम पे. So accordingly, the leaders and activists were released from the jails. So 18 months की आपकी जनवरी इमरजेंसी रही थी. लीडर्स को जेल से रिलीज किया गया एंड इलेक्शन वर हेल्ड इन मार्च 1977. सो जनवरी में लीडर्स को रिलीज करा और मार्च में ही इलेक्शन रख दिए ताकि लीडर्स को ज्यादा टाइम ना मिले अपनी अपोजिशन पार्टीज को स्ट्रॉन्ग करने का, कोई कोalition बनाने का और कोई एक मेजर मोटिव रूलिंग गवर्नमेंट के अगेंस्ट अडॉप्ट करने का. This left the opposition with a very little time, but political development took place very rapidly. The major opposition parties had already been coming closer in the pre-emergency period. Now they came together on the eve of election to form a new party known as the Janata Party, and they accepted the leadership of Jayaprakash Narayana. So now we will see uh, final results took everyone by surprise. For the first time since independence, the Congress party was defeated in the Lok Sabha election. The Congress could win only 154 seats in the Lok Sabha. Its share of popular vote fell to less than 35%. The Janata Party and its allies won 330 out of 542 seats in the Lok Sabha. And Janata Party itself won 295 seats and thus enjoyed a clear majority because the majority which was needed is only 250 and 260 something. In North India, it was a massive electoral wave against the Congress. The Congress lost in every constituency in Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Delhi, Haryana, and Punjab, and could win only one seat each in Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh, meaning Congress was wiped out from the entire North India. Indira Gandhi was defeated also, as her son Sanjay Gandhi from Amethi as well. दोनों माँ बेटे भी defeated किए गए. Even Indira Gandhi did not win. सो अगर हम मैप पे देखेंगे तो ऐसा नहीं है कि इंदिरा गांधी की गवर्नमेंट जो थी, जो कांग्रेस थी, वो पूरे के पूरे ही इलेक्शन हार गए थे. देयर वर सम एरियाज वेयर दे केम इन मेजोरिटी, लाइक इट रिटेन्ड मेनी सीट्स इन महाराष्ट्र, गुजरात एंड उड़ीसा एंड वर्चुअली स्टेप थ्रू द सदर्न स्टेट. सदर्न स्टेट्स में उनका तब भी वो बना हुआ था, जो डोमिनेंस था. कॉज जो इमरजेंसी के प्रोविजन, जो इमरजेंसी की हार्डशिप्स थी वो सदर्न स्टेट्स में ज्यादा फील नहीं होती, इसलिए उनकी पॉपुलैरिटी वहां पे ज्यादा थी. नाउ वी विल नो समथिंग अबाउट द जनता गवर्नमेंट. So Janata government came in power after 1977 election. After the election, there was strict between three leaders, namely Morali Desai, who was a rival of Indira Gandhi ever since 1966 to 7. Charan Singh, जो leader थे भारतीय लोक दल के, and a farmers leader from the UP, which is Jagjeevan Ram, who had a vast experience in as a senior minister in the Congress government. So eventually, Morarji Desai became the prime minister, but that did not bring the power struggle within the party to an end. The opposition to emergency could keep the Janata Party together for only for a while. Its critics felt the Janata Party lacked direction. So Janata Party slowly starting to fade out, meaning because it lacked direction, it lacked leadership and a common program on which it can continue for the next 5 years. The Janata Party could not bring about a fundamental change in the politics from those pursued by the Congress. The Janata Party split, and the government, which was led by Morarji Desai, lost its majority in less than 28 months, meaning not for even 3 whole years, the party stood. Another government headed by Charan Singh was formed on the assurance of the support of the Congress party. But the Congress party later decided to withdraw support with the result that the Charan Singh government could remain in power for just about 4 months. So fresh Lok Sabha elections were held in January 1980, only 3 years after the elections were held in 1977, in which Janata Party suffered a comprehensive defeat, especially in North India, where it had swept from the polls. So within 3 years only, the Janata Party lost its majority. So Indira Gandhi again came into power and nearly repeated this victory. It won 353 seats and came back to power. Almost super majority अभी भी इनको मिल गई. The experience of 1977 to 99 taught another lesson in democratic politics that government that are seen to be unstable and quarrelsome are severely punished by the voters, meaning the people want stable government. They do not want any type of government which to them looks unstable and querable. That they are not, they lack direction, they lack unity, they lack leadership, they lack a common agenda. These are the parties which are not liked by the people of India, and these can get severely punished, as we have seen in the 1980s election. So we now see the legacy. So we will see that is it now a return of Indira Gandhi? Like there are the sequels of movies like Robot, Robot 2, Robot 2.0. Is Indira Gandhi, is this Indira Gandhi 2.0? Between the election of 1977 and 1980, the party system had changed dramatically. Since 1967, Congress party had started studying its character as an umbrella party which accommodated leaders and workers of different ideological dissensions and viewpoints. We had seen earlier, we have read earlier that the Congress was a whole accommodative party within itself. That there was different ideologies, different thinkers, different type of believers within the Congress only. That there are socialists, there are capitalists, there are conservatives, there are idealists, etc. Anything and everything can be found within the Congress only. But after the 1969, these changes uh, shook a lot within inside the Congress, and slowly and rapidly, the ideological differences became very clear, and the Congress got split. So, thus, with the early 1970s, the Congress political success depended on attracting people on the basis of sharp social and ideological divisions, and the appeal of one leader, Indira Gandhi only. So, with the change in nature of the Congress party, other opposition parties relied more and more on what is known as Indian politics and non-Congressism, meaning other parties lacked agenda. So, they fought on the agenda of non-Congressism, meaning that उनके पास कोई एजेंडा नहीं है तो उन्होंने इसी को एजेंडा बना दिया कि हम कांग्रेस को नहीं रहने देंगे. उनसे कोई पूछा आप क्या करेंगे, वो नहीं हमें पता, पर कांग्रेस नहीं रहना चाहिए. So they also realized that need to avoid the division of non-Congress votes in the election. This factor played a major role in the election of 1977. So, in a manner, of the issue of welfare state, welfare of the backward caste also began to dominate the politics since 1977. As we saw above, the results of the 1977 election were at least partly due to a shifting amongst the backward classes of North India. Following Lok Sabha elections, many states also had assembly election 1977. Again, northern state elected non-Congress government, in which the leaders or the backward class played an important role. The issue of the reservation for the other backward class became very controversial in Bihar, and following this, the Mandal Commission was appointed by the Janata Party. And this Mandal Commission will play an important role, which will finally led to the implementation of 27% reservation for the OBCs in central government jobs, state government jobs, and in the education institutions. So we will read about this in the next chapter. The emergency and the period around it can be described as a period of constitutional crisis because it had its origin in the constitutional battle over the jurisdiction of the parliament and the judiciary. On the other hand, it was also a period of political crisis. The party in power had absolute majority, and yet its leadership decided to suspend the democratic process. कांग्रेस मेजोरिटी में तो में थी ही ना only because one member, one woman got diselected. That this was the nomination got invalid into the party. One woman keep an entire nation to a standstill for the next 3 years. The makers of the Indian Constitution trusted that all political parties would basically abide by the democratic norm. So this was not the case when the emergency provision was inserted in the Constitution. And our leaders thought that. The leaders are going to be the sensible. As the coming time, leaders are going to be more sensible than us, more educated than us. And why will they hamper the democratic process at all? But they did less they did know that the power tussle, that the want and the greed of the power will lead the next few generation of the electors, next few generation of leaders so greedy, so power seeking that the whole process of the democracy is going to be at the standstill. This expectation led to the wide and open-ended powers to the government in the times of emergency. They, these were abused during emergency. This political crisis was more serious than the constitutional crisis. And another critical issue that emerged during this period was the role and extent of the mass protest in parliamentary democracy. There was a clearly a tension between institution-based democracy and democracy based on spontaneous popular participation. This tension may be attributed to the inability of the party system to incorporate all aspirations of the people. So in next chapter, we'll study some of the manifestation, meaning some of the aspirations of this tension. In particular, debates around the regional identity. So इलेक्शन के टाइम पे क्या हुआ था जैसे कि आपकी एक नेशनल आइडेंटिटी नहीं बन पाई थी अब धीरे धीरे क्या हुआ रीजनल डिफरेंसेस सामने आने लगे हमने देखा जैसे कि नॉर्दर्न स्टेट्स के अंदर आपकी जो बाकी की पार्टीज थी वो जीतने लगी मेनली फ्रॉम द बैकवर्ड क्लासेस सो दिस सीम्स व्हाट दिस इज टू बी नोन एज द रीजनल डिफरेंसेस being carried out in this phase and in the next chapter only we are going to see the regional differences which were prevalent at that time only. So with this, we are going to summing up this lecture. In the next lecture, this will be uploaded soon, and the next lecture will be uploaded within 2 or 3 days after the uploading of this lecture. Hope you liked the video, and please make sure to like, share, and subscribe the channel because this gives us motivation to go forward, to make more useful content to us, to more make more interactive content to for all of you. Uh, Thank you very much.